And I'm going to start it back up on the next section relating to the board of directors. Hold up, let me. Oh, good. All right. Now, tell me, read the first, and this is very, very important. Read the first statement on what is a 501c3.
Yes, yeah, to be tax exempt under Section 501c3 of the IRS code, and an organization must be organized and operated exclusively for exempt purpose set forth in the Section 501c3. And none of its earning may inure to any private shareholders or individual.
So what are they saying? Let's just stop right there. Basically what they're saying, that as a nonprofit, none of the board members can profit financially from being on the board. Let's say you got a board member that has a house, and he says to the nonprofit, hey, won't y'all buy my house? That's a no-no, because that board member is getting a benefit from being on that board. The only members of the board of directors that's allowed to be paid is the CEO. And why do you think the CEO is the only person who should be paid related to the board of directors?
I'm not sure.
Well, because that person runs the day-to-day operation of the corporation. As the CEO, we got to make sure the door is open. He got to make sure staff is hired, staff is training, bringing money to the organization. So that's why that person paid. Whereas the board of directors probably only meet once a month, or whatever the case might be. Okay, let's move on. Now, when we look at what makes a strong organization strong, that organization should be able to ask the question related to the why. Why does that organization exist? And what are the problems that you plan to combat? Who are we? What programs and activities do you plan to institute? How do you plan to implement these programs, and how much will it cost? The other thing that a nonprofit should have, and as you move forward with your organization beyond the grant class, is putting together policies and procedures, staffing, positions, qualification, funding, sustainability. You can do that through the grant class that we're being taught now. Physical control, that goes to how do you plan to financially manage the organization, and of course, access to support resource and sustainability. And at some point, your organization should do what's known as a SWOT test. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the presentation. So what is the SWOT analogy? At some point, and we do work with organizations to put this together, after you've been around, you should be able to assess what is the strength of your organization. What are your weaknesses? What are your opportunities? And what are your threats? Normally, only your Fortune 100 corporate organization will put this together. But in the nonprofit game, you always want to show the funder that you think this like a business, although your status is 501c3. So let's read what a vision is again.
Yes, you want me to read it?
Yes.
Oh yeah, so the vision, the desired future reflects your core values and beliefs, and sets in motion a proactive direction for the organization.
Excellent. Notice a lot of time I'm going to repeat the information, but being told from another person's perspective. Okay, what about the mission?
Yeah, so the mission is their plan of action. It becomes the driving force of the organization. It is a broad statement that summarizes your plan of action. It should be short, concise, and measurable.
Excellent. So, the board of directors actually must provide strong oversight over the organization. This is the multi-roles of a board of directors. Give me the different roles that the board of directors should serve to be a strong.
Should be setting policies, strategic planning, hiring CEOs, advocacy, fundraising, fiscal and legal oversight, recruiting new board members.
Excellent. Now, let's talk, and this is very important, about the legal responsibility of every board member. And this is important because when a board member joins the board, they must understand that they have to have loyalty to the organization. Okay, read the first.
Yeah, they must have duty of care, which is competence and exercise of reasonable care in making decisions.
Next.
They should also have duty of loyalty, which is undivided allegiance and the avoidance of conflict of interest.
Next.
They should also have duty of obedience. They should be faithful to the organization's mission and goals.
You want all of your board members to present these qualities so none of your board members turn around and stab you in your back. Next.
Yes. Protecting the board of directors. So at the governing body, the board is responsible for the organization. Therefore, it is the most vulnerable to lawsuit.
Now, this is how an organization protects itself from a lawsuit. Read that for me.
Yeah, so directors of board are considered liable to third parties when board members knowingly participated in wrongdoing, when the nonprofit acted outside of or in some way inconsistent with its bona fide status as a nonprofit.
Normally, a board of directors is protected if someone sues your organization. On the other hand, but let's say, for example, you have a situation where you give an event and water falls down and someone comes and slips and hurts himself. Normally, the board of directors is protected and a person can only sue the corporation and not the assets of the individual. However, if a board member knowingly participates in wrongdoing, then that individual board member or board member or board members then can be sued. Let's say, for example, y'all bring somebody on board that had a record of child molestation, and you had a daycare center, and you hired that person in a daycare center. Well, under those situations, you can be sued as a individual board member. Other than that, you're protected. Okay, read that for me.
Yeah, protecting the board of directors. Board members had either reason to know of wrongdoing or were negligent in knowing of wrongdoing by the organization.
You have to be very careful about who you bring on staff and making sure that person is not putting the corporation in harm's way of a lawsuit. Okay.
Protecting the board members, knowledge to protect. The board members must be informed on directors and officers insurance, indemnification, volunteer and protection act.
Now, if you are sued and you actually did everything you were supposed to do, then what you can do is get what's known as directors and officers insurance. That means if someone sues your organization and the child that fell down, then the insurance will protect you. So if that person sued for $1 million, the insurance company will pay for it. The other thing, and this is very important, you want to make sure you have a clause in your articles of incorporation, and you do when you look at your article of incorporation that we provided for you. It's going to be called indemnification. What that means that you protect yourself by saying, if you should sue our organization, you can only sue the corporation and its assets, but not individual board members. By not having this clause in your articles of bylaws, your members can be subjected to being sued. And then, of course, you want to have something that protects your volunteers as well. Okay, let's continue.
Protecting the board of directors, risk management assessment, risk management plan, and general liability.
So that means that you have to have a risk management assessment plan together. What do we mean? For example, that plan would say, we will always conduct criminal background checks to make sure that the employees who are working with the kids are not, they don't have a past record. Or your risk management would say that whenever water drops on the floor, it's incumbent upon that staff to wipe that water up so nobody falls down. That's what we mean by risk management assessment and risk management plan and general liability insurance. So far, so good?
Yes.
Okay. Read this for me.
Building a strong oversight body. The board of directors should meet at least quarterly and maintain minutes that include date, time, place of meeting, names of members present and absent, and summary of discussion and action taken.
Now, as you go as an organization, it's going to be critical that every time y'all have a board meeting, y'all take the minutes in order to make it part of your official records. Now, because a grant writer might come and say, give me the board minutes for the last 3 meetings. In your case, you already knew, you're fairly new. But I'm saying an example, let's say you've been around for a year, and they ask you for the minutes for those board meetings. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's important that you keep board meetings. You should meet at least 3 times a month. I'm sorry, you should meet at least quarterly. You can meet monthly, but at least quarterly.
Okay.
Okay, let's continue. Now, let's talk about what board members should come to the table with.
Yeah, qualities of a mature board members. They should be strategic thinkers, diversity in skills, expertise in background, ownership of mission, and advocacy.
Okay, the board members should have these tendencies right here. Okay, let's talk about the committees. The committees are actually the heart and the soul of any board of directors. Share with me the different types of committees.
Yeah, there are the executive committees, the resource development committees, marketing committee, nominating committee, and finance committee.
Now, a lot of organizations are fairly new, so the only thing they have to have is an executive committee and a finance committee. And then as you grow, you should also include the rest of these type of committees. Now, every organization should have a strategic plan. One of the things we do is to work with organizations and putting together strategic plans. So this is what a strategic plan is. This goes beyond the mere writing of a grant. This goes to organizational structure. So what is a strategic plan?
Yeah, the strategic plan is where you want to be in the future. It maps out the course to get there. It provides the roadmap, the goals, details, and timeline of the mission to the desired future, the vision.
Now, let's break down some of the things that is consistent with that plan.
Yes, go ahead. Some of the also mission, for instance, like service or program management, which is human resources and internal operation, money, which is the budget side of it, forecasting, funding, fiscal control, and marketing, which is positioning, branding, and promotion.
Give me 1 minute. Okay, excellent. These are the major parts of a strategic plan. Some of the strategic plans that I put together for organizations can be anywhere 20, 30 pages, depending on how complex they want to get. Now, let's talk some more about the strategic plan in terms of the components.
Yes. Do you want me to read it?
Yes.
Yeah, so we have the executive summary, which makes the first impression. It describes your current organization, accomplishment, and where you want to be. We also have the, go ahead.
Yeah, the executive summary is what you get, what I call getting past the gate. If one to read your executive summary and they're not impressed, they're not going to read the rest of the proposal. Okay, next.
Yeah, program description, it is the heart of the mission. It describes the program's goals and evaluation.
This during the classes that you're going to be taking, we're going to be talking about how to put together a program description, as well as putting together a budget. And in the final section, the market. Read about the market.
Yeah, the market. So the people who benefit from your service and the people who support the service. It is the organization's customers.
So it's going to be all of these different components that's going to be part of the grant writing proposal. Okay, now what is the other parts of the strategic plan?
The operation, the timeline, and financing. The operation is there are the internal controls and systems that support the infrastructure of the organization. It describes changes that needs to be taking place in the infrastructure.
Next.
Then you have the timeline. The timeline is the schedule for getting things done. It includes milestones, inaction, steps to be achieved as well as reporting methods. Then last, you have financing. Financing covers your plan to fund the mission and operation. It includes budget and specific strategies to acquire funds.
Part of the class is going to put together with you all of these different components. It's going to be what we call a logic model. A logic model is not a strategic plan, but a logic model consists of all of these components and is required for anyone that's writing a grant proposal. Okay, let's continue. So, resource, we're going to go past this really quick. Human resources is going to talk about how do you plan to recruit people, what are going to be the qualification, are you going to be providing training? This is not important in terms of a logic model or a grant, but it is when you write your 5-year strategic plan. Again, this is not important because it's talking about human resources. This is talking about annual staff retreat, full-time staff versus non-full-time staff. This goes back to more human resource. As you know, even on your job, you have to have a job performance evaluation. And that's going to be continued upon whether or not your staff is going to get an increase in salary. Then you have to do an assessment of job performance on each individual the same way with your regular job. Now, policies and procedures serve as risk management tools. These consist of your organizational policies and procedures for your board. This consists of your employment manual, your financial manual, all these things right here related to organization policies and procedures. Again, talk to me about what's the difference between a policy and a procedure. And by the way, this will be on the test.
Okay, yeah. So policies govern the organization and should be reviewed and approved by the board of directors annually. Procedures manage the organization and or action steps developed by the management team that supports or carry out and approves policies.
Excellent. Okay. This is so very, very important because a lot of people get themselves in trouble. There is a difference between what's called an exempt employee and a non-exempt employees. Let's talk about the difference.
Yeah, a lot. Go ahead.
Let me see if they break them down. Okay, let's talk about what an exempt employee is.
Yeah, so exempt employees include those who are not subject to the overtime provision and other employment conditions defined by the FLSA. Generally, such employees, so those occupying executive, administrative, professional, and outside sales positions.
Okay, so we know what exempt employees are. Let's talk about what are non-exempt employees.
Yeah, non-exempt employees must comply with the overtime pay provision of the FLSA and applicable state laws, regardless of individual title or duties. This includes the payment of overtime for hours worked in excess of 40 hours per week.
So, for example, U.S. Executive Director, you what we call an exempt employee. That means they only have to pay you 40 hours a week, although you might work 80 hours a week. Now, an exempt employee is like the janitor, the secretary. You have to pay that person overtime over 40 hours. That makes sense to you?
Yes.
Executive positions like top dogs, they exempt. They only get a 40-hour check. But normally that's a big check. Your regular people like your non-exempt employees, like your janitor, your secretary, etc. Well, sure, they don't get the big money, so therefore, if they work over 40 hours, you have to pay them overtime. And this I'm not going to go over. You can look at this at your leisure. This is only when you get big and you start to bring in volunteers. Every nonprofit at some point should have volunteers, because volunteers are going to do the bulk of the work of the organization. That's why your organization must create a vision that other people buy into and want to solve the same problem that you want to solve. This, again, goes into volunteering, and just talk about the different components: recruitment, retention, and recognition. Okay, let's read this.
Yeah, proper internal fiscal control. It is paramount that the organization establishes a system of internal control for accountability of all funds received and disbursed. This
is what I talked about earlier in terms of the different documents that we put together, and this would be a financial management, talked about physical control. Let's talk some more about this, because this is very important. This can get you in jail if you're not found appropriate phone calls when it comes to controlling money. Read that for me.
For major concept of an internal control, the internal control has segregation of function, proper authorization, proper recording of transaction, and limiting access to assets.
Notice these are what we call internal control to make sure money is being spent like it's supposed to be. Next.
Yeah, proper internal fiscal control. It is highly recommended that the organization use an automated accounting system to record all transactions pertaining to revenues and expenditure using generally accepted accounting principles.
Okay, let's move on.
The accounting system at a minimum should include chart of accounts, general ledger and subsidiary ledger, account receivable and payable, payroll information.
Now, our manual consists of all of the stuff that they're talking about here in terms of financing. Okay, continue.
The accounting system at a minimum should include financial report, the budget, bill reconciliation, tax information, and inventory.
Okay. Let's move past this. Okay, hold on 1 second.